Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the greatest war of your life wasn't fought in a battlefield. It didn't involve guns, flags, or nations. It was fought silently, invisibly, inside your own mind. You weren't recruited, you were born into it. And like most people, you never knew, because the war doesn't come with alarms or uniforms. It disguises itself as your thoughts, your impulses, your beliefs. It whispers in your voice. But it's not you. It's the unconscious. We often think of ourselves as conscious beings, rational and in control. But beneath the surface of awareness lies a vast terrain we rarely explore, an inner wilderness full of unresolved emotions, ancient fears, hidden motives, and forgotten memories. Most of us never dare to look, because what we might find terrifies us. We are conditioned to believe that evil is external, that manipulation comes from outside forces, governments, corporations, cults, and while that's not untrue, the most effective manipulation doesn't require surveillance or coercion. It simply requires that you never understand yourself. Because if you don't know your own mind, someone else will. Why do people vote against their own interests? Why do we sabotage relationships we desperately want to keep? Why do we pursue lives that make us miserable and defend them as if they're sacred? We live in an age of hyperstimulation, an age where distraction is celebrated and self-awareness is optional. But this isn't just a cultural trend, it's a psychological defense, a way of avoiding the parts of ourselves we've buried. We tell ourselves we're logical, moral, even kind. But under pressure, we lie, we lash out, we manipulate, betray, destroy, often without understanding why. We call it instinct, stress, emotion. We call it anything but what it is: unconscious programming. What if the greatest form of control doesn't look like oppression, but like freedom? What if the enemy has no face, because it lives inside yours? Carl Jung saw this war long before most. He dedicated his life to understanding the depths of the human psyche. He warned us that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will control our lives, and we will call it fate. But we didn't listen, because the truth is inconvenient. It's easier to believe that we are who we appear to be, that our opinions are our own, that our habits make sense, that our fears are rational. But the moment you question that, the moment you realize your mind may not be entirely yours, something changes. You begin to see the cracks in society, in others, in yourself. And what you see can never be unseen. This film is not about psychology in the academic sense. It's not about self-help. It's about a secret war, ancient, invisible, and ongoing. A war between who you are and who you refuse to face. Because the darkness in the world is real. But the question is, how much of it is simply a reflection of what we've refused to see in ourselves? The war isn't coming. It's already here. And it's been here all along. Welcome to the battlefield. Carl Gustav Jung was not a man interested in surface-level explanations, where others saw behavior. He saw mythology. Where others spoke of neuroses and disorders, Jung spoke of gods, symbols, and the abyss. Too many. He seemed less like a doctor and more like a mystic with a stethoscope pressed to the soul. In the early 20th century, Jung began his career alongside Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. But while Freud focused on sexuality and childhood trauma as the roots of mental conflict, Jung sensed something deeper, older, darker. The split between them wasn't just academic, it was philosophical. Freud wanted to understand the mechanics of the mind. Jung wanted to map its terrain like a cartographer of the unconscious, and what he discovered was terrifying. At the heart of Jung's work is a concept that continues to disturb modern psychology: the shadow. The shadow is not a monster hiding under your bed. It's the monster hiding in your smile, your politeness, your curated online persona. It is every part of you that you've rejected, denied, or buried. Your rage, your envy, your lust, your desire for control, your potential for cruelty. All the impulses that society tells you are unacceptable. But here's the paradox. What we repress doesn't disappear. It festers. The unconscious mind is not passive, it's alive. It remembers everything you forget. It watches what you deny. And eventually it fights back. Jung believed the shadow gains strength the more we ignore it. It begins to seep through the cracks of our personality through sarcasm, addiction, jealousy, passive aggression. It drives our obsessions and our self-destructs. It manipulates from behind the curtain, whispering old scripts we never wrote, but perform daily. But the most dangerous form of the shadow isn't personal, it's collective. When entire societies refuse to acknowledge their inner darkness, the results are catastrophic. Think of Nazi Germany not as a political phenomenon, but as a psychological eruption. A nation desperate to restore pride, struggling with humiliation, and projecting its repressed fears and insecurities onto another. Jung was one of the few psychologists of his time who tried to understand fascism not just as ideology, but as mass psychology. He warned that unexamined archetypes like the hero, the victim, the enemy could possess people. And possession, in Jungian terms, is not spiritual, it's psychological. We don't just act out roles, we become them. He once said, "People don't have ideas. Ideas have people." This is not poetic exaggeration, it's a warning. A person unaware of their shadow is vulnerable to any ideology, any movement, any leader who gives that darkness a name and a target. It's why propaganda works, not because it's convincing, but because it gives you permission to hate what you already fear inside yourself. The Cold War, too, became a theater of the unconscious, two superpowers projecting their own darkness onto each other, each side, believing it was the light, the other side the shadow. But Jung saw it differently. He saw two nations, both possessed by the same archetype, the savior battling the devil, unaware that the real enemy was never across the ocean, but inside the mirror. So what does this mean for us now, in an age where enemies are abstract, borders are digital, and hatred is algorithmically fed? It means the shadow is still here, and maybe stronger than ever, because now we've perfected distraction. We no longer just avoid the shadow, we scroll past it. We package our pain into jokes, we filter our envy into images, we diagnose our trauma but never confront it. And all the while, the unconscious grows more alien to us, more powerful, more dangerous. Jung's terrifying discovery wasn't that we have a shadow, it's that most of us would rather project it onto the world than ever look at it in ourselves. And that single decision over and over again throughout history has shaped revolutions, genocides, purges, wars, and mass delusions. But here's the truth Jung knew, and few dare to repeat: until we face what we fear in ourselves, we will always need an enemy. So we keep inventing them, because that's easier than asking, what part of me is hiding behind this hatred? What am I pretending not to know? Jung didn't pathologize the shadow to condemn us. He revealed it to free us. But freedom, he warned, doesn't come from affirmation or positivity. It comes from confrontation, from descending into your own abyss and coming back changed. Not cleaner, not perfect, but whole. It's one thing for an individual to live with a shadow, those hidden parts of ourselves that we repress and avoid. But what happens when a society, a culture, or even an entire nation refuses to confront its darkness? What if the collective unconscious of a people is filled with fears, anxieties, and unexamined impulses that, when ignored, grow powerful and dangerous? The answer is not just a personal tragedy, but a social catastrophe. Carl Jung believed that societies, like individuals, carry their own shadows. These are the collective fears, traumas, and unspeakable truths that shape the behavior of entire populations. When a society fails to confront its shadow, it does not disappear. It simply gets projected onto others. And when that happens, mass hysteria is born. One of the most disturbing consequences of this collective psychological projection is the phenomenon of the other, the scapegoat, the enemy, the outcast. For societies in denial of their own darkness, it's easier to externalize their fears onto someone else, making them the enemy to be feared, punished, or eradicated. And the results can be devastating. Take, for example, the Salem witch trials. In the late 17th century, a small, Puritan community in Massachusetts was swept up by fear, suspicion, and a growing sense of moral panic. Women, primarily, were accused of witchcraft, a label that allowed people to project their darkest fears about female sexuality, power, and defiance onto vulnerable individuals. These witches became symbols of all that was feared, repressed, and unacknowledged in society. The result, a frenzy of trials, executions, and mass hysteria, driven by collective psychological projection. This was not an isolated event. Throughout history, similar patterns of collective projection have caused untold suffering. McCarthyism, the political witch hunts of the 1950s, demonstrated how paranoia and fear of communism led to the scapegoating of thousands of innocent people in the United States. In the midst of the Cold War, the Red Scare triggered a mass psychosis, where anyone could be accused of being a communist sympathizer, simply because they represented something feared and unknown. The shadow of American society, built on suspicions of the other, was projected onto individuals who were seen as threats to the status quo. This fear-driven social madness ruined careers, lives, and the very fabric of the democratic system. The most horrific example of mass projection, however, is the Rwandan genocide. In 1994, a country torn by ethnic division saw the eruption of a mass slaughter of the Tutsi population by the Hutu majority. For years, the media, government, and political elites fed into the narrative that the Tutsis were not just a minority group, but the enemy, the other, an existential threat to the nation's identity. This dehumanization created a collective shadow that could no longer be contained. The result was a horrific bloodbath, one of the most brutal genocides in modern history, where nearly 1 million people were killed in the span of just 100 days. These are extreme examples, but they reveal a universal truth. When we refuse to face our inner darkness, we create the conditions for mass destruction. What happens when societies externalize their shadow? They begin to fight wars against their own projections, wars of paranoia, fear, and violence. This is a psychological law that transcends time and place. We live in a world that is increasingly fractured, politically polarized, and deeply divided. In our social and political discourse, we see echoes of the same destructive patterns that have been repeating throughout history. Cancel culture, for example, can be seen as a modern manifestation of mass projection. People who deviate from accepted norms or fail to align with a particular ideological viewpoint are often swiftly labeled and punished as enemies. Their mistakes or differences are projected onto them as moral failures, and they are cast out of the social body, often with devastating consequences. What's happening here is not just about right or wrong. It's the projection of society's own repressed values onto individuals. The same can be said for today's political polarization. Both sides of the ideological spectrum, whether on the left or the right, often cast the opposing side as evil, corrupt, or irredeemable. In doing so, they externalize their own shadows, fears of the other, fears of losing power, fear of being left behind. As the divide deepens, it becomes easier to forget that we all share the same humanity. We turn enemies into monsters and monsters into symbols of everything we can't accept in ourselves. Our political debates are no longer about differing views, they are battles for identity and survival. The real enemy, however, is not the person we disagree with, but the unchecked darkness within ourselves that has created such division. This is the terrifying power of mass psychosis, as Jung warned, a collective loss of self-awareness. When large groups of people lose touch with their individual thoughts and values, they become vulnerable to the collective unconscious, the ideologies, fears, and emotions that can take control of entire societies. The loss of individual consciousness makes it easier to believe that the enemy is out there, rather than within. But in doing so, societies begin to repeat the same destructive cycles over and over again. This phenomenon, where societies externalize their shadow, leads to what Jung referred to as the archetype of the enemy. In every culture, the enemy is an essential part of the collective psyche. Societies need an enemy to define themselves, to rally round, and to justify their actions. The enemy becomes the scapegoat for everything that's wrong in the world. But Jung believed that the true enemy is not the one we can see or point to. It's the one we refuse to acknowledge, the darkness inside ourselves. Jung spoke of the wounded healer, the archetype of the individual who has confronted their own wounds, their own shadows, and has the ability to heal others as a result. But before healing can begin, we must first acknowledge the wound. A society, like an individual, can only heal when it faces its own darkness. And the first step in healing is to stop projecting that darkness onto others. Our world is filled with enemies, both real and imagined. But the greatest enemy may not be the one we fight in the streets or on the internet. It may be the one we carry inside us, the unconscious fears, prejudices, and desires that shape our reality without our awareness. Until we confront this enemy, we will remain trapped in an endless cycle of projection, division, and destruction. The path to healing begins not with defeating the enemy outside, but with facing the enemy within. As Jung said, the only way forward is through. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Only by confronting our collective shadows, our fears, our prejudices, our biases can we move beyond the endless cycle of externalizing our darkness. Only then can we heal as individuals, as societies, and as a species. Who are you when no one is watching? It's a question we rarely ask ourselves, because we've been conditioned to answer in a way that fits a very particular narrative. The truth is, most of us are strangers to our own identity. We have spent so much of our lives crafting the perfect version of ourselves that we've forgotten what lies beneath the mask. Carl Jung coined the term the persona to describe this mask, the social facade we wear to fit into society, to be accepted, to be loved. The persona isn't inherently evil. It's a necessary part of social life. It helps us navigate the complex world of human interaction. But the danger rises when we confuse the persona with the self, when we mistake the mask for our true face. In a world that places enormous value on appearance, on status, success, and the projection of an idealized life, many of us begin to believe that the persona is who we are. We forget that the persona is a construction, a performance designed to meet external expectations. It's the version of ourselves that we think the world wants to see, the version of ourselves that's accepted. We see this everywhere. On social media, we curate our lives to present a polished, ideal image. The photos we post are edited, filtered, and framed to show us at our best, happy, successful, radiant. The moments of doubt, the rawness, the vulnerability, they are hidden away. We chase careers that aren't aligned with our passions, all for the sake of status. We repress desires, quiet the voice that whispers what we truly want, just to maintain the illusion that we are doing well, fitting in, or achieving success. It's a performance we put on every single day, for others and for ourselves. We've become so invested in maintaining the illusion of the persona that we've forgotten how to be ourselves. But this distortion of identity doesn't come without a cost. The consequences of living a life based on the persona are profound and damaging. Burnout, anxiety, identity crises, and depression are all products of this disconnection between the mask we wear and the person we are beneath it. The tension between who we pretend to be and who we really are creates a psychological strain that we don't always understand. We can spend years trying to meet the expectations of others, all while slowly losing touch with what we truly want or need. This is not just theory. The rise in mental illness in modern society is directly linked to this existential crisis of self-identity. Consider the staggering statistics on mental health. Anxiety disorders have skyrocketed in the last 2 decades. Depression rates are higher than ever, particularly among young people, who are more prone to the pressures of social media and the performance-driven culture. At the same time, social media addiction has become epidemic. Platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok push users to create curated, idealized versions of themselves. They incentivize the persona, rewarding likes and validation based on how well we present ourselves, not how we truly feel or who we really are. Algorithms ensure that we are constantly comparing our unfiltered reality with everyone else's perfectly staged highlight reel, reinforcing the message that our authentic selves are inadequate, boring, or unworthy. The persona is more than just a tool of self-presentation. It has become a system of control. Advertising, education, and politics all rely on the persona to keep their structures intact. Think about it. If people were truly authentic, society as we know it would fall apart. Most advertising would have no effect if we weren't also desperate to project an image of success. Most political ideologies wouldn't have the same power if people weren't so attached to the idea of fitting in with a particular group. Political campaigns are built on the persona, convincing us to adopt certain views, to align ourselves with a brand, a message, a leader, even if it doesn't align with our inner truth. It's not just the systems that benefit from our personas, we benefit too. In the short term, the persona helps us feel secure in our place in society. It gives us a clear role to play, but the more we play that role, the less we understand who we are beneath it. Eventually, the persona becomes a prison. Jung's warning was stark. We are not our personas. The mask we wear does not define us. But when we forget this fundamental truth, we begin to live for others, for validation, for success, for approval. We forget how to be still, to reflect, and to listen to what our true self is saying. And so we ask, who are you when no one is watching? Would you still be you without your job, without your social media followers, without the political party you align with or the label you wear? What happens when you take off the mask and stand before yourself in the quiet, in the stillness, without the need to perform? Can you bear to look, or does the reflection scare you? It's easy to live in the persona. It's comfortable, it's safe, it's the path of least resistance. But it's also the path of self-deception. And if we continue to deceive ourselves, we will never discover who we truly are. We will never tap into the authenticity and potential that lies within us. The more we cling to the persona, the further we stray from the truth. The persona is not an enemy, but a defense mechanism, a survival strategy in a world that demands conformity. But when we live through the persona for too long, it becomes our master and we become its slaves. The performance becomes the reality, and the truth fades into obscurity. If we want to heal, if we want to break free from the cycles of anxiety, burnout, and depression, we must start by asking ourselves, who am I when I am not performing? What part of myself have I abandoned in order to fit in? And how can I reclaim that truth before it's too late? Only by shedding the mask can we begin to see the person behind it. And only then can we start living authentically. Not for others, not for validation, but for ourselves for the first time. The journey to self-knowledge is never easy. It is a road full of obstacles, pitfalls, and moments of despair. It is a path that demands courage, honesty, and sacrifice. But it is also a path that leads to freedom, the kind of freedom that only comes when we stop running from ourselves, when we finally face the darkness within. Carl Jung didn't just describe the shadow. He offered a way out of it. He called it individuation, a lifelong, transformative process of integrating the unconscious parts of ourselves into our conscious self. It is the process of making the unconscious conscious, of confronting the hidden parts of our psyche and owning them, not to become consumed by them, but to become whole. Imagine, if you will, a warrior descending into a cave. The shadows are thick, the air heavy with the weight of what has been buried for so long. The warrior does not know what awaits them inside, but they know one thing: they must go in. There is no turning back. In the darkness, they will encounter not only monsters, but their own reflection. They will meet their double, the part of themselves they have avoided their entire life. This descent into the darkness is not a metaphor for evil. It is a confrontation with the capacity for evil that resides within all of us. To face the shadow is not to become evil, but to acknowledge that we have the potential for both good and bad, light and dark. Jung believed that only by confronting our shadows can we achieve a deeper understanding of who we truly are. And in that honesty, we can find true freedom. The process of individuation is not about becoming perfect, nor is it about rejecting the darker parts of ourselves. It is about integration, about owning every aspect of our psyche, accepting that we are not just the sum of our positive traits, but also the sum of our weaknesses, our fears, and our deepest desires. When we face the truth of ourselves, we become free, not from our flaws, but in spite of them. There's nothing easy or simple about this process. It is painful, often excruciating, but as many who have undergone it have shown, it is redemptive. Take Fyodor Dostoevsky, for example. The great Russian novelist spent much of his life wrestling with his own demons. In his early years, he was a man of great moral uncertainty, plagued by guilt, doubt, and self-loathing. After being sentenced to death for his involvement in revolutionary activities, he underwent a profound psychological transformation. The brush with mortality, the moment when he thought he was about to be executed, forced him to confront the darkness of his own soul. He came to terms with his own capacity for sin and redemption, which ultimately gave him the raw material for his greatest works, novels that explore the deepest corners of the human soul. Through suffering, Dostoevsky found the courage to face his shadow, and in doing so, he became one of the most significant writers in history. Similarly, Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who sought to understand the nature of human existence, underwent his own descent into the cave. Nietzsche's writings explore the tension between the Dionysian and Apollonian forces within the human psyche: chaos and order, destruction and creation. For Nietzsche, confronting the shadow was an essential part of his philosophy. He famously said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." To confront the darkness of the world, one must first confront the darkness within. Malcolm X offers another powerful example of the transformative power of facing the shadow. Born in the segregated United States, Malcolm X was a man shaped by rage, violence, and a deep sense of injustice. But as he journeyed through the many layers of his identity, shifting from a life of crime to radical black nationalism and finally to a deeper spiritual awakening, he began to confront the darkness within himself. His pilgrimage to Mecca marked a profound shift in his consciousness. By embracing a broader vision of unity, he was able to confront not only the external oppression he had fought against, but also the internal prejudices and anger that had defined his earlier life. In facing the shadow, Malcolm X became an advocate for forgiveness, understanding, and transformation, not only for others, but for himself. These examples, Dostoevsky, Nietzsche, Malcolm X, show us that the path of individuation is not about running from our darkness. It is about confronting it, integrating it, and ultimately growing through it. It is the process by which we transform our wounds into wisdom, our flaws into strengths, and our suffering into a source of empowerment. But individuation is not something that happens once and then disappears. It is a lifelong process, a journey that continues as long as we live. There are many roads to individuation, and they are as varied as the individuals who walk them. Some find their path through therapy, working with a therapist to uncover the unconscious material that influences their lives. Some take the route of solitude, retreating from the noise of the world to face their own inner world in silence. Others may find that psychedelics, which alter the state of consciousness, can catalyze the process of confronting the shadow, helping to reveal the parts of the psyche that have been buried for years. Even suffering, the kind that seems senseless and unfair, can become a portal to individuation. As Jung said, the greatest war is not out there, it's in here. The external world may challenge us, but it is in the internal battles, the struggles with our own psyche, that the greatest transformation occurs. Individuation is not an easy path. It requires us to face our own darkness, to confront the fears, desires, and impulses we've spent our lives hiding from. It demands that we accept the full range of our humanity, both the light and the dark. But it is through this confrontation that we gain true freedom, the freedom that comes from knowing who we are, from accepting ourselves completely, from being whole. This is the essence of Jung's message. The journey towards self-realization is not one of escape, but of embracing. It is through the acceptance of the shadow, the integration of all parts of ourselves, that we can live freely and authentically. And only then will we know the greatest truth of all. The greatest war is not out there. It's in here. In the quiet chambers of the unconscious, Carl Jung's ideas have always lurked, waiting for the moment when the world would be ready to hear them. That moment may very well be now. In a world that has been rapidly changing, where existential crises seem to deepen with each passing day, Jung's work has found new relevance. The resurgence of Jungian ideas in contemporary thinkers, artists, and storytellers suggests that we are returning to the very roots of what it means to be human. The conflict between the conscious and unconscious, the light and the dark, the mask and the self. Jordan Peterson, one of the most influential thinkers of our time, has become a modern-day prophet of depth psychology. His exploration of archetypes, myths, and the human condition echoes the core principles of Jung's work. Peterson's emphasis on the importance of confronting the shadow, the parts of ourselves we least want to acknowledge, reflects Jung's own belief that facing our unconscious is essential to finding meaning in our lives. He is a bridge between Jung's 20th century theories and the 21st century crises of modern existence. Jung's mystical and symbolic approach to psychology was not widely accepted in his time. The world was not yet ready to embrace the depth of his thought, preferring instead the cold logic of Freud's ideas or the straightforward methodologies of behavioral psychology. Jung's exploration of the collective unconscious archetypes and the mystical elements of the psyche were seen as too esoteric, too far removed from the scientific approach of the day. For decades, Jung's most radical ideas were dismissed, and his spiritual approach to psychology was marginalized. But now, in the wake of a global existential crisis, Jung's time has come. His ideas are resurfacing in popular culture, hidden in plain sight within films, literature, and the narratives of our daily lives. We see his archetypes and his themes playing out in modern stories that speak directly to our deepest fears and desires. Fight Club, with its exploration of identity and the destruction of the ego, echoes Jung's concept of the shadow, the repressed parts of ourselves that, when left unchecked, wreak havoc on our lives. The protagonist's descent into chaos, the creation of his alter ego, Tyler Durden, is a direct confrontation with the unconscious. It's a battle between the constructed, acceptable self and the chaotic, unconscious forces within. Similarly, films like Joker, Inception, and The Matrix explore the tension between inner and outer realities. In Joker, we see Arthur Fleck's transformation into the Joker as a descent into madness, a rejection of societal norms, and a confrontation with the painful truth of his existence, echoing Jung's warnings about the dangers of unacknowledged shadows. Inception delves into the layers of the unconscious mind, where dreams are not just escape, but realms of psychological conflict and personal transformation. And The Matrix, perhaps one of the most direct expressions of the Jungian struggle, is a story about waking up from the artificial reality that binds us. Much like Jung's metaphor of the cave in the process of individuation, these modern films, alongside thinkers like Peterson, are drawing us back to the myth-based storytelling that Jung believed was essential to understanding the human psyche. But it's not just art and philosophy that are rediscovering Jung's relevance. Our very existence is beginning to mirror the psychological dilemmas Jung predicted. Today, the world is grappling with existential crises on a scale that Jung could not have fully anticipated. Artificial intelligence, hyperreality, gender identity, and social isolation have become central issues of our time. Each of these phenomena points to a deeper, unspoken anxiety about meaning, identity, and the self. The rise of AI has forced us to ask fundamental questions about what it means to be human. As machines become more intelligent and capable, we must confront the existential fear that perhaps we are not as unique as we once thought. The tension between our conscious and unconscious desires for meaning is made even more urgent by the rapid advancement of technology. Will our humanity become obsolete, or is there a deeper, unconscious need to evolve that these technologies are pushing us to confront? The hyperreality of the internet, the constant barrage of curated images, facades, and idealized lives has left many feeling alienated from their true selves. We live in a world of projections, where our identities are increasingly defined by what we present online, not by who we truly are. This struggle to reconcile the image we project with our internal reality is a direct reflection of Jung's concept of the persona, the mask we wear to fit in with society, often at the expense of our true selves. Issues surrounding gender identity have forced us to reconsider the rigid boundaries of what it means to be male or female. Jung's exploration of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine aspects of the psyche, regardless of biological sex, has found new relevance as people question the very foundations of gender itself. Jung understood that the unconscious holds a fluidity that the conscious mind struggles to grasp, and the modern quest for self-definition is, in many ways, a reflection of this unconscious exploration and social isolation amplified by modern technology, yet exacerbated by our inability to confront the deeper truths of our psyche, has left many disconnected from themselves and others. Jung warned that without meaningful connection to the self, individuals are at risk of losing their way, their sense of purpose, and their place in the world. In a world that increasingly denies inner meaning and externalizes suffering, Jung has become a spiritual counterforce. His exploration of the unconscious, his belief in the necessity of integrating the dark parts of ourselves, and his recognition that the path to wholeness is through confronting the shadow. These are the principles that modern society, more than ever, desperately needs. Jung was not just a psychologist, he was a prophet of modern consciousness. His message was clear and prophetic. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The unconscious mind is not just a passive entity. It is a force that shapes our actions, drives our fears, and pushes us toward meaning or toward madness. The unconscious is where our personal and collective shadows dwell, and until we face them, they will continue to control our lives. Jung's ideas, once rejected and dismissed, have now come full circle. They resonate with us because they speak to something primal, something universal. In a world of chaos, uncertainty, and rapid transformation, we are finally beginning to understand that the true battle is not external, it is within. And only by confronting the depths of our own unconscious minds can we hope to find peace. The battle rages on. It's a war that never truly ends, at least not in the way we hope. We've learned, perhaps too late, that the real fight wasn't fought on foreign soil, nor was it waged by armies of men in uniform. No, the true war is the one we each face within our own minds. A war that plays out quietly, beneath the surface, in the corners of our thoughts, in the whispers of our desires and fears. But here's the brutal truth: the war does not end. The shadow does not vanish. We do not defeat it. What we learn, if we are willing to face it, is that the shadow is ever-changing, ever-adapting. It is not a single enemy we can defeat. It is a force that shifts, mutates, and hides within us in different forms. It lurks in the smallest actions, in the subtle compromises we make with our own truth. It creeps into our thoughts, our habits, our relationships, and yes, even our politics. Those who think they've won the war, those who believe they have outgrown their shadow, are often the ones most enslaved by it. For when you ignore the shadow, you don't eliminate it. You allow it to control you in the most insidious of ways. It becomes the unseen hand that guides your every move, the hidden force behind your actions and decisions. It manifests in denial, in avoidance, in projections onto others, in the creation of false enemies. The shadow never stays still. It grows, it adapts, it twists into something even more dangerous when left unchecked. And when we refuse to confront it, we give it the power to shape our lives without our consent. Like an addiction, it pulls us back into the same patterns, the same destructive behaviors, over and over again. But here's where the beauty lies. For in this constant battle, this never-ending war, there is a kind of revolution. Not the kind that shakes nations, not the kind that floods streets with protesters or topples governments, but a quieter, more profound revolution. It's the revolution of self-awareness. Every act of introspection, every moment of honest self-reflection, every time we look into the mirror of our own soul and confront what we find there. This is a rebellion against the false self. This is a rebellion against the illusions we've built, against the societal pressures that shape us, against the inherited traumas we've been handed. The more we acknowledge our shadows, the more we grow, the more we understand the darkness within us, the less control it has over our lives. In the quiet spaces of awareness, the shadow loses its power to manipulate us. We begin to see the world not as a battleground between good and evil, but as a field of possibilities where we can choose who we want to be. But this is a choice we must make every day. It's not a what-I'm victory. It's a commitment to face our darkness over and over again, to keep digging deeper into the unconscious, to keep revealing the truth of who we are no matter how painful that truth may be. The fight is not an easy one. There's no comfort here. There's no grand victory, no utopia waiting at the end. But in this relentless pursuit of self-awareness, there's something more profound than victory: freedom. True freedom comes not from avoiding the shadow, but from embracing it, from acknowledging the dark corners of our minds and then choosing to move through them, to integrate them, to transform them, and in that transformation, we become more than we were. We become whole. So, as the dust settles on this battlefield, as we stand amidst the wreckage of our own illusions, we must remember that the war is not over. It will never be over. The shadow will always be there, lurking in the dark corners of our minds, ready to rise again. But the weapon we hold is self-awareness, and as long as we remain vigilant, as long as we continue to confront our own darkness, we will never again be slaves to it. The truth is, the most dangerous place in the world has never been a battlefield, a courtroom, or a government. The most dangerous place is your own unconscious, and the most powerful weapon is self-awareness. In the end, the choice remains ours. Will we face the enemy within? Will we step into the light of our own consciousness, even when it's blinding? Or will we continue to let our unconscious guide us, like puppets on strings, blind to the forces that shape our very existence? The war may never end, but in that never-ending struggle, we find our freedom, and that, perhaps, is the greatest victory of all.